So, the Royal Family Part 2. I'm recording it straight after Part 1. Otherwise, I forget what I said in the first one. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to say in this one, but there's a few more pieces I need to pick up. First piece I want to pick up is about American presidents, is that they become royal families. In the absence of a royal family, they become royal. The Kennedys, um, the Obamas, the Clintons, they all have this aura of royalty about them. And so do their very rich families in a way that I don't think you get in England. Of course, you get a certain amount of that in England, but I think the pressure's taken off of all of that because we have a royal family. So I just wanted to make that point first of all, and it wouldn't do the Americans any harm, I think, to have a royal family because I don't think it does the leader any good to have to carry all of that. Of course, they like it. Yeah, who doesn't like being treated like royalty? Yeah. Well, in a way, we like it, and in a way, we feel really uncomfortable about it. Um, I've always felt uncomfortable in that kind of position where, um, I mean, 30 years ago now, I was running a Buddhist center in South London, and it was going well. Yeah, I talked from somewhere quite real. I wasn't just passing on the teachings. Yeah, like, well, go and read it in a book if that's what you want. I was actually talking from my own experience and being quite open, and that went really well. But I could just feel I was at the center of something. I was carrying all this projection. People had me up there, and I just felt uncomfortable with that. And I've stayed away from that sort of position ever since. Um, so if you've got a certain amount of integrity, it's also uncomfortable. But I'm not sure that prime ministers always have an awful lot of that kind of integrity. They like power. I mean, you've got to want power. You've got to have a passion for power to get to the top in politics, and that's okay. It's like they're human beings. They're mixed things. They're idealistic. They do want to do some good, but they're also they. There's a lot of ambition there. But of course, they've got ambition. We've all got ambition, and it's something we process in the over time. But they're also remarkably blind. I mean, I saw this documentary about the Blair Brown years in the UK 20 years later, and they're getting Blair and Brown talking. Now, they still couldn't see their faults 20 years later. Brown could never see that actually he might have been a good chancellor, but he never had it in him to be a leader. He wasn't built like that, but he couldn't see that. Blair couldn't see the incredible mixture of motives with which he went to war in Iraq. He just couldn't see it. He was still justifying 20 years later. So they tend to be very blind to themselves. And in a way, you have to be able to see things in black and white terms to be a politician. You have to be able to go, this is right and this is wrong, and persuade people of that. And they won't be persuaded unless you believe it yourself. So there doesn't tend to be that subtle psychology where you're able to examine yourself. And so, all the more need for a royal family, I say, because of the type of people we have leading us. I don't know if there's any better system than we have at the moment, but people who aren't aware of themselves, if they're carrying that kind of divine mantle, which is what leadership gives you, um, you've got to bloody well handle that. I mean, look at the Dalai Lama; he carries that divine mantle big time, but he's able to remain human with it. You just see him in conversation. It's like two people that are equal. He's just natural. He's human. You can feel he doesn't take it too seriously. Mick Jagger, he's another one. I mean, rock stars have that divine mantle, but Mick Jagger's just kind of normal. He doesn't take it too seriously. You've got to be able to see it and not take it too seriously, whereas a lot of rock rock stars kids do. And you see it in the names they give their kids, like Frank Zappa calling his kid Moon Unit, yeah, and and Bob Geldof calling his kid Trixie Bell, and David Bowie calling his kid Zoe Bowie. I mean, probably they were all young when they did it, and maybe they grew out of it. But they believe they're special. They curse their kids by making them special. I mean, it's not playground friendly to be called Moon Unit, is it? Anyway, enough of all of that. It's difficult if we're in a position like that. We carry that divine mantle. So having a royal family defuses that. It really stops us taking it all too seriously. And yeah, so I wanted to make that point first. Just you can put that burden down and let the king carry it. He has that impersonal role to carry, and hopefully the shoulders to do it. I think King Charles has, and you see, he's been through a hell of a process. This is the other thing I want to talk about, because it's a very narrow cage. If you're born into the royal family, it's a very circumscribed life. I mean, when people go, oh, well, it's privileged. Oh, it's all right for them. Well, what do they mean? Would you like to be born into that kind of life where you have very little choice? You have to live according to certain rules. And your working life, you're having to pretend to be interested in all these different things and be polite to all these people you don't know and show an interest. It must be exhausting. I'd find it exhausting. So good on them for doing it. Good on them, and for being able to live within that. And you see, Prince Charles is a Scorpio, and what I admire about him, with Leo rising, and what I admire about him is he's managed over the years to forge King Charles. I keep calling him Prince Charles. I probably always will. He's forged his own identity within that very circumscribed cage. He got his farm, Highgrove or wherever it is, plus his Duchy of Cornwall. He does a lot of organic farming. He gives his cows homeopathy. He talks to his plants. Good on him. I talk to my plants. At least I try and feel well towards them. You stroke them, they like it. They're actually alive. The earth's alive. I tell you something. I was lying on my bed this morning. I don't like to sleep in a bed frame. I like to sleep on a mattress on the floor. I feel closer to the earth, even though I'm up there, yeah, on the first floor. And I could just feel the earth. Yeah, she's alive. It's like, what do you want from me? Thank you for being there. Thank you for holding me. So Charles has some of that kind of feeling, has a feeling for nature, a feeling for animals, a feeling for the planet. His eyes on the future. He can see all these issues arising to do with the planet, to do with the need for alternative medicine. He's open, yeah. And he had a family that was, I mean, Prince Philip had his own sterling qualities. He was a warrior. He stood up straight, yeah. But he had a sense of humour. You had to not take him too seriously. People did, but he was quite narrow. And Charles had to fight his way out of that. And he made something of himself. He made his own distinct personality in a way which his mother never did. That's not a criticism, but she didn't really. And I'm not sure William ever will. But Scorpio's a survivor. He had to fight for his psychological survival. And that's what he did. Now, another thing about families that have those rigid rules is that there's always a black sheep. And sometimes, quite often, the black sheep are white sheep. And sometimes they're a bit of both. But they're people who cannot live within those rules. And they're being seen as kind of rebels, but they're not. They're just not built that way. And the royal family, every generation throws one up. You had Edward VIII, Princess Margaret, Princess Diana, and Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew is a Pisces. Pisces lose everything. Gorbachev was a Pisces. He lost everything. He lost his empire. Andrew's not too bright up top. He's lost everything. Yeah. And now we've got Harry in this generation. Oh, Princess Margaret. Don't forget Princess Margaret as well. So each time there's someone who cannot live within that circumscribed rule. And you notice this in rich families, there's always one, because as soon as a family has money, it has its own rules to live by, which can be very tight. You have to look like you're a rich person with that kind of status and live according to and know certain people and all of that. Some people, they cannot handle that. So it's like it's a safety valve. And it means that the people who are being the good guys, obeying the rules, can project onto them like mad as well. Okay.